REC. All right, lights, camera. Pizzanti, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, Eglinton, the stage is set. Let the play begin.
Okay, thank you. Many countries, including the US and India, have considered implementing a ban on TikTok. The ban stems from concern over national security, data privacy, and app influence on younger audience. Blame, diagnostic of what causes the ill. The primary cause of these concerns is the belief that ByteDance could be compelled to share the data with the Chinese government under Chinese laws that mandate companies to provide data to the government when requested. The spread of misinformation and harmful content on the platform. In an article written by the investigation COVID-19 Vaccine Communication and Misinformation on TikTok, cross-sectional study was authored by Alessandra L. Zulli. They were associated with various institutions, and their work delays into the spread of vaccine-related information and misinformation on social media platforms, specifically TikTok. An example of these misleading informations was that the spread of TikTok regarding COVID-19 vaccines included claims that the vaccine altered DNA or causes infertility that sparked significant fear and confusion. One of the specific pieces of misinformation that gained attention on the platform was a false assertion that the COVID-19 vaccine could lead to severe side effects, like permanent damage to the immune system or even death, which was not supported by any scientific research. Additionally, there were viral videos that promoted the idea that vaccines were part of government conspiracy theories that were being used to implant microchips into individuals, which both were not true. TikTok has become a breeding ground for various conspiracy theories, many of which involves claims about government corruption, surveillance, or secret operations. Another point that causes concerns is the government control and surveillance. Another conspiracy theory is the idea that the government are using the surveillance technology to control citizens, spread propaganda, or monitor social media. TikTok due to its Chinese ownership. Another article that I found was Chinese ByteDance admits to using TikTok data to track journalists. This was written by Hong Kong Free Press. It provides an overview of an incident involving ByteDance's use of TikTok data to track journalists and the implications of such actions. In this article, ByteDance uses TikTok to track journalists. They also confirmed that this breach was inappropriate. The issue raised concern about privacy security, especially concerning TikTok, how TikTok is tied to China. The article discussed ongoing concerns regarding TikTok's data privacy practices, particularly its ties to China through its parent company ByteDance. It highlights global speculations on how TikTok collects and handles user data, with fear about whether the Chinese government could access it or not. The piece details TikTok gathers extensive data on its users, including the device information and browsing habits, to refine its algorithms. This article was written by Dan Mallow from The Guardian. There are concerns that the Chinese government could pressure ByteDance to hand over user data, potentially exposing sensitive information about millions of Americans, unlike US-based social media platforms. Potential health issues related to excessive social media usage. Another major concern is TikTok impacts on mental health, particularly among young users. Studies suggest that excessive use of the platform contributes to shortened attention spans, addictive-like behavior, and the spread of harmful trends or challenge that can put users at risk. Plan to fix the ill. To address the concern about TikTok, several solutions could help improve the situation. Data localization. TikTok could store user data in countries where it operates. This would make sure that the data is protected and not shared with foreign governments, especially China. TikTok must build data centers in each country and follow their privacy laws. Collaboration with local governments. TikTok could collaborate more closely with governments in each country to comply with their data protection laws. This would help ensure TikTok complies with local regulations and prevent further issues about data privacy. Costs. Implementing the cure. While these solutions can be helpful, they would come with some challenges. Enhanced content moderation. TikTok would need to hire more staff and use advanced technology to control content. This could be expensive and might slow down the app's growth. Political challenges. Working with government, especially in countries with tense relation with China, could be tricky. There could be also concerns about censorship that would make it harder for TikTok to run smoothly. Benefits. Restore trust. If TikTok could act to protect user data and prove it's trustworthy, users and government would feel more comfortable using the platform. Another example would be global market access and improved content quality. Conclusion. In conclusion, this concern surrounding TikTok data privacy and its role in spreading miscommunications are valid and should be addressed. Thank you.
Time. All right. Huh? Yours? No, yours is not today. You guys are scheduled for the 17th, but it's going to happen on the 22nd because Kazanti's going off on some sort of a boondoggle. White,
Yes, sir.
we are ready.
All right. Good morning, Dr. Polly. Good morning, class. I'm going to be talking about the negative side of the debate. To begin with, TikTok. The ban on TikTok would result in a lot of different problems, including the effects on content creators, advertisers, educational benefits to young children and teenagers who use TikTok, worsening our relations with China, and ruining government reputation with freedom of speech. Beginning with how it affects content creators, there are many content creators who began their platform on TikTok, while other social medias use or are used to help promote their brand and sell their products. TikTok is one of the most widespread ones. It is home to about 170 million monthly U.S. citizens in the U.S., which is alone over half of the actual U.S. population. TikTok is also one of the cheapest ways that people can promote and spread their content or products that they use. And in a USA Today article, Blake Chandler, who was TikTok's president of Global Business Decisions, says that just a 1 month shutdown, this is talking about the shutdown that happened, or this is just estimating a 1 month shutdown of TikTok, saying just a 1 month shutdown could nearly lead to $300 million in lost earnings for over 2 million content creators. There are many content creators on TikTok, but around 2 million, give or take, more than that, use it as a main source of benefit and revenue for themselves to live. Some people use it for like their main source of revenue, or they use it as partial. But still, just a 1 month shutdown could lead to over $300 million in lost earnings. Going into how it affects advertising with small companies, TikTok is, like I said, if not it is the best place for advertisers to promote their products and companies to promote their brand, because it is cheap and it is widely spread across the entire world for all languages and all people. Banning TikTok takes that luxury away from a lot of upcoming companies. Smaller companies have it easy on TikTok because, like I said, of how cheap it is. In Columbia Business School, there was a news report that showed that in January, where the TikTok was banned for just that short little bit of time before it got back in the App Store, that small companies had to reallocate their spending to other platforms, mainly Meta, Facebook, and Instagram. But because of the high demand because of the high demand for advertising spots, prices shot up nearly 10%. Large companies began spending about 66% more on those platforms to take away those advertisings, and this is kind of how monopolies begin to form with the large companies who are trying to promote their things and take away the upcoming assets and adversaries who are promoting similar products that are not theirs are able to spend all their money that they have, take away those advertising spots from the small companies so that they are able to maintain control of what is being sold around. Going on to the educational benefits of TikTok, in March of 2023, TikTok implemented the STEM feature, which I'm sure most of us have saw or used. The STEM feature was a way that, according to a Medium article, TikTok's main purpose with that was to encourage learning, promote STEM careers, combat misinformation, and bridge the digital learning gap. Going into encouraging learning, I'm sure all of us who have used TikTok have at least seen something or learned something new on TikTok. It is actually very beneficial. You know, obviously there's brain rot and stuff like that, but there's actually a lot of good stuff on TikTok. Going on to promote STEM careers, a lot of those STEM careers, and this goes into bridging or combating misinformation. All of those TikToks in the STEM career are all fact-checked by multiple sources, so that is very useful. It is all good information, and it promotes scientific experiments, different career fields, a lot of stuff to encourage children who are on the app to actually want to pursue meaningful careers in their life. And then bridging the digital learning gap. This goes into a lot of people may have TikTok or may have access to a phone and media, but they may not be in wealthy living situations where they can actually go to school and work and learn about these digital careers. So going into that, TikTok is using the STEM feature to help bridge that and open up a new world to these kids. Going into how TikTok banning it could worsen our relations with China. The word hegemony, I don't know how to say it, but it's leadership or dominance. It is essentially the power that the United States has in the world. For the longest time, the United States has remained as one of, if not the most dominant force in terms of trade relations, military, all the whole dime aspects, so diplomatic, informational, military, and economic. It has maintained the high power. But with us banning China, China believes that that is its way of the U.S. basically saying that we're scared of them. We're worried that they're rising up as a power, and we're trying to take away its access to our data because we're scared of what they can do. As someone who is in ROTC and some of the other ROTC people in the room, we know how much China is a threat to us, and banning TikTok has, in my opinion, and what I've found, no actual benefit to helping our relationship with China. It's only going to worsen it and split that gap, that bridge, or break the bridge that is trying to keep us together. Because of the TikTok ban, China is looking to actually move into independently operating and closing off a lot of foreign trade routes and operating only within their own system. So it's actually going to worsen a lot of things with that too in terms of trade and economy. Going on to freedom of speech, a research paper done by Ohio University says that the First Amendment scholars are arguing that a ban threatens free expression and access to ideas. So banning TikTok is ruining the government's reputation because it is ruining and worsening our way of exercising our First Amendment of freedom of speech. In 2023, Montana actually passed a law banning TikTok, but with concern over the potential for a Chinese government to access user data. But that ban was actually challenged by federal law, and the judge blocked the ban because they ruled it unconstitutional. So just 2 years ago, a federal judge ruled the banning of TikTok to be unconstitutional against freedom of speech. This also, like I said, goes into the government image of the people. If we're banning TikTok, we're ruining or we're taking away a lot of access to citizens' ways of getting information from all around the world. So a lot of people are scared that this is the government's way of controlling what we see and the information that we are getting. In conclusion, banning TikTok has no benefits besides potentially keeping some of the data away from us, but that actually hasn't been proven wrong. There's been no sources that say that ByteDance has sold any of our data. Banning TikTok is going to worsen a lot of educational benefits for young children, screenagers who are growing up. It is going to worsen a lot of economy and financial benefits for content creators and companies who are coming up, and it is going to worsen our relations with China.
Time?
7:17.
7:17, okay, start the stopwatch. 2 minutes and 30 seconds to prepare for rebuttals. By the way, white
Yeah.
hegemony,
Hegemony?
just like Jiminy Cricket,
Yeah.
hegemony.
I saw that word and I liked it, but I didn't know how to say it.
Oh, it's a good word. Hegemony, hegemonic. Son, you've heard of the word hegemony, haven't you? No? Yeah, I'm not surprised. You guys in the sciences. It's a philosophical, political, cultural, anthropological, yeah. Yeah, my mnemonic device was hegemony cricket. Are you comfortable wearing?
Very.
No back. What are you doing, Bazzotti? Ripping things up?
Yes, yes.
How much time do I have left?
30 seconds left.
30 seconds. Time?
2:15. 15 seconds left.
Okay.
Five seconds left.
Oh, boy.
Time.
All right. So, Ms. Eglinton, if you want to take the lectern, you have 4 minutes for rebuttal, whenever you're ready.
Mr. White talked about how millions were lost during that TikTok ban and the beneficial learning that kids learn on TikTok. So I'm going to be covering that. When the ban happened, users that lost millions could simply use social media platforms that are under the US government, such as Instagram, Facebook, and potentially Snapchat. And while it is true that relying solely on platforms like TikTok for income can be very unstable, they can simply encourage creators to get a traditional job. They ignore the fact that social media platforms have become their intended career path. And Mr. White also said that it was the freedom of speech that was on TikTok. And like I said, they can simply express their speech on other social media platforms. The beneficial and learning part, there is a STEM version on TikTok that everyone can click on to learn, but I'm pretty sure that all the users that are using it do not use that, and they would not learn on TikTok. And another thing is that I think our security and our security and health risk is a bigger factor towards the millions of dollars that we lost. Thank you, that's all I got.
All right, time?
2 minutes, 10 seconds.
2:10. All right, Mr. White?
All right, Ms. Eglinton, during your construction phase of the debate, you mentioned that ByteDance could, or you said the word concerns and worries a lot in terms of what ByteDance could actually do with our information, selling it to China. However, even you yourself never mentioned anywhere where that has actually happened. Using words like concerns and worries means where there's a potential of it happening, but it hasn't happened yet. And anywhere that I've found, ByteDance has yet to actually been proven to be selling our data. So this is essentially kind of something that we're worried about, but as of now, I mean, TikTok's been around for multiple years and there hasn't been a single instance where ByteDance has been proven to sell our data. So I don't find that a real concern for us. You also, speaking about platforms, you mentioned that the creators who were on TikTok and the banning of that could just go to other platforms. As I previously mentioned, whenever this happened over this past January, a lot of the companies began to start buying more and taking on more advertising spots so that the smaller companies and their competitors who were up and coming cannot have those things. The advertising spots increased by over 10%. So it's becoming a lot more expensive to try and use those bigger platforms where TikTok is a lot more widespread and can be used for a lot of upcoming content creators and companies. Talking about the STEM thing, you said that we don't use the STEM, nobody really uses the STEM page, and while that's fair, the STEM part is really only for science stuff. That's what the STEM stands for. Was it scientific, technological, engineering, and mathematics? So that's all science stuff, math stuff. However, the main For You page still has a lot of good stuff, and I'm willing to bet that anybody who's been bed routing or scrolling has still learned something or found some good videos on that they can use to apply to their real life. Going on to mental health, you mentioned briefly, I believe in your construction slide, that it could be mental health or worrisome to a lot of kids who are constantly using TikTok and social media, scrolling on that. However, that shouldn't fall onto a ban of TikTok, because at any point they can also just go onto Instagram or Snapchat or YouTube and find content that can also worsen their mental health. So it's not just a TikTok only thing. And with that, I believe it should fall under the parents' responsibility to monitor and control what their parents are watching or what their kids are watching. Or, I mean, if they're watching it on a phone, just turn the phone off and then your mental health is fixed. And then going on to, you mentioned previously, government propaganda. Going on to what I said, if the government is using TikTok, an outsourcing or a company that is outsourced not in the United States to promote their own versions and propaganda, would it not make more sense for them to be using that on any other sites? And with that, the government already has a kind of a bad reputation amongst the American people for potentially doing stuff or using all their propaganda to promote their own ways. So I believe that the government would not be using an outsourced company to be promoting their own propaganda, considering that their reputation is already being detrimental. And a ban of that would only worsen that for them, thinking that they are trying to control it and keep it only within America. Thank you.
3 minutes, 25.
All right. I'll throw it open to the floor for first questions. We're going to have to obviously limit, because we've got a second debate to hit. And I want those folks, well, anyhow, go ahead, Novak.
More so just because, like, this is too good of an argument not to use. Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok all have very similar terms of service in their use. You did mention that they all do the same shit. It's only TikTok that got targeted by the U.S. government.
Well, exactly. That's because, like we said, or the whole part of the argument is because they're not like sourced in America. They're from, or ByteDance, the one that like owns TikTok, is from China. So that's where the security, like, where the data security, for the issue they have with it. But like I said before, ByteDance has yet to been proven to be stealing any of our data that we've been using or giving to them. So it's not really, it's not a security like problem. It's just a worry that we have.
One more Novak, and then we'll.
You said that ByteDance has not been proven to steal any of our data. But
Not steal, sell, sorry.
steal or sell. but in the past, even with other companies like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, so this could be users trying to against them as well. But there have been massive data leaks, Chinese hacking attempts and successes, and also Chinese companies are forced to go under compliance with the CCP in order to be registered in China. So by doing so, I understand some of the data is here under Top Version North Star in Texas. That would imply that the Chinese government could basically gunpoint some poor Chinese developer and be like, you need to give me some of this data, or your family is accused.
Yeah. Was there a question with that? That's all I want to say.
No, there
The
wasn't.
question
All right.
was, you say potentially, you say that it's not happened yet. How do you know if it's not just proven, but it's a very major risk given that China's had this past?
I mean, you can do that with anything. I mean, there's a high chance that someone could come in and, do something bad, but it's just a worry and a concern. But until it happens, all we can do is, yes.
Don Ho?
I would argue that there's a lot more evidence of American companies stealing and selling data to outside
Yeah.
sources than there is of TikTok selling and stealing data to outside sources.
Okay. Oh, Hornet.
So I
Question?
Yes, I noticed.
Not a sermon.
I noticed
a
that
question.
neither of you brought up the potential for TikTok to be sold. How would that change the dynamics?
So the whole point of I guess you can answer this since it's really affirmative. But the whole point of the proposition is that, or the bill that was signed was that TikTok's either gone or they sell it to us for at least 50% of the company, so that we maintain and own most of it, and we can operate within it for in America. So.
How long were they given?
I believe it was
They've given a 90-day extension, I think, today.
Well, yeah, but the law itself.
It immediately ended. When President Trump came into office, he immediately gave an extension.
No, the law itself said that upon the signature of the bill, that ByteDance would have 180 days to divest itself of TikTok. And then after that, that was the original language. Yes?
So neither of you guys talked about how the most, or how the most desirable part of TikTok is the physical algorithm that has been developed. And I was just curious to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
That's kind of a lot what I talked about, how small TikTok is one of the biggest platforms for small content creators and companies to come and advertise, because it's actually somewhat affordable, and because of the algorithm, a lot of it is outreach to people, to where someone with not a lot of money can go post a TikTok promoting a t-shirt or something like that, and it can still get seen by 1 million people or anything like that. Whereas a lot of these other companies require a lot more payment, and it's harder for the small people or people without a platform to get on.
Second and last question, Wakefield. It is a question.
It is. This is a question for Eglinton. So you mentioned that creators without TikTok could use other social media platforms, Instagram, X, Facebook, Snapchat, to still become a way that they can have an income. However, do these companies and these certain social media platforms actually have an ability for creators to get paid?
Just create a what?
For creators to get paid.
Yeah,
Now,
on Instagram.
paid, unpack that for me. What do you mean by paid?
Like on TikTok, you can
Well, on
get money for how many views, how viral your videos go, but you can't really do that on other social media platforms.
On
Well,
Instagram,
YouTube you
get
can,
sponsored.
can't you?
YouTube, X.
Yeah.
You get sponsored by
Facebook,
certain
all of them.
things if you have enough followers.
Yeah, it gets monetized that way. All right, I want to commend you folks. By the way, so I'm going to direct this to White. This was actually a law signed in by then President Biden last April, about a year ago. It passed, right? It had to be passed by the Congress and then signed by the President. So, White, it seemed to be the thrust of your argument that there's really no proof. You attacked Eglinton by talking about concerns and worries. In your opinion, given the fact that the Congress of the United States put forward this bill and the president signed it, that there's no legitimate concern that a company that has this much data, as Novak pointed out, the Chinese Communist Party could basically say, we want the information. I'm asking White.
What was the question in that? I'm sorry, I got lost.
Is there, I
Is there a
mean, you
legitimate
seem to
concern?
just dismiss out of hand that there was any legitimate concern or worry about TikTok.
In my personal opinion, off the camera of what the debate is, I don't really think that much of it is going to be of any interest. Like, if China sees me in my bed eating hot Cheetos, like scrolling, I don't think that's much problem. I don't think most of the data that they're stealing is going to be too big of an issue. But I can also see, because China is such a big problem and threat for the current I guess it's not even a war, but the conflicts we have with China right now, because they're coming up as the world threat. And yeah, I believe it could be a concern. But in terms of my argument, like I was saying, there hasn't been any actual proven data that any of the information or data they're taking has been sold. And also, a lot of the, all the companies in our, that operate in America, like we're talking about X, Instagram, YouTube, they all also take the same data that ByteDance and TikTok is taking. It's just, it's not in China.
Would the Chinese government sell the data they got from TikTok, or would they use it?
I guess
I
that's
mean, isn't that a concern? And we have a hard time listening to this debate, considering the fact that now our government and the Chinese government are in a trade war and keep slapping each other with tariffs, and it's over 125% the last I heard. But there's no doubt that our government and the Chinese government see each other as mutual threats. All right. One more question, and then we'll wrap this up and move on to the next debate. I was going to commend you, by the way. I interrupted myself. I was going to commend you for being good questioners. There have been times in debates in the past where I've thrown it open for questions, and all the students kind of look at each other like, and I think it's the golden rule in reverse. If I don't ask you a question during your debate, you won't ask me a question during my debate. But I'm glad to see that that's not in play here. One last question. Vasanti.
White, you keep saying that there's no evidence that data's been sold or used by the Chinese government, but Eglinton brought up the fact that TikTok was tracking a journalist and gave that to the Chinese government. So how does that hold up exactly?
Okay, every single article that I've looked over our website, there's been no, I've been seeing that it's all been concerns, worries that this could happen, but I haven't seen that it actually has happened yet.
Okay.
So.
In the United States.
Okay.
By the way, how many of you have TikTok on your phone? They know your location. Do they know your location without you granting it? I mean, I go onto my phone, like for instance, in Cane's or Home Depot or whatever, and it says they want to know your location. You have to give them permission. But those of you TikTok users, do you have to consent that they know your location?
Yeah, that's an Apple.
Huh?
Well, with Apple, that's an Apple.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah?
So during the rebuttal phase, are we not allowed to ask the opponent questions?
No. You're not. Not allowed to ask questions. You can make statements and assertions. All right. What do we got? Ooby-doo. I think our battery is getting low.